looks like we are live. Good evening, good morning, good night for some few of us. So first off, my name is Kenneth Eckermann. I'm from the Norwegian community. And today we're gonna pick up a glass bowl and look into the future, right guys? We're gonna look at the Cardano's vision towards 2030. There is this thing in the Cardano that comes from Intersect. It's called the product committee. Their main task is to aim and assist the community out there by facilitating and creating like a shared vision for the community of what direction and where we are going. And they also have this mandate at Intersect to ensure that whatever we are building is aligned with the Cardano strategic goals and mission. And so today we have this roundtable. We have picked up some of the, let's say, the best people in the community. We have Christina from Pragma. We have James from USDM stablecoin. We have Rafa Snack community. We have Kyle here from DReps and Chris from Catalyst. I thought maybe, so not everybody, knows everyone and all about Cardano. For those that are new listening in, why don't you start, James? I will start put you on the spot first.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Ken. So my name is James. I am the business development lead and one of the founding members of USDM. We're a fiat-backed stablecoin operating on Cardano. And also, above all, I am a Cardanian here working and living within our ecosystem.
Nice. And what about you, Kyle? What do you do in the Cardano ecosystem?
Hey guys, my name is Kyle Solomon. I'm the CEO of DReps. That's my day job. I'm also a stake pool operator. I run the Frog stake pools, and I am the vice chair of the Intersect product committee. So that's pretty much my day.
Nice. And what about you, Christina?
My name is Christina Giannaloni. I am COO of Blink Labs and head of the board of Pragma. My work centers around developer tools, open source governance, and ensuring what we do on Cardano isn't just technically excellent, but usable, sustainable, inclusive.
Nice. And Chris, what do you do in the Cardano ecosystem?
Hey everybody, I'm Chris Baird, newly updated strapline here, GM at Project Catalyst, Cardano's innovation engine, and a mainly fund program. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm having a little bit of weird sound problems, so forgive me. I might have to come back into the stream. But yeah, I also represent the Cardano Budget Committee as one of the elected voting members, and have been here since 2017. So yeah,
oh nice,
that's me.
And we can hear you okay, Chris. Just so you know, check on sound side. You're good at least.
And Rafa, what about you?
Hey guys, I'm Rafa. Nice to meet everyone in the stream here. So I'm the CEO of the Snack Foundation. Most of you might know my partner Goofy Chris. I'm usually the one behind, not really being active on social media. We split the work, and we usually keep it that way. I'm more and more active, so that's why you might see my name or my face more and more on social media and in events, since we've been doing a lot more governance. And for people that might be living under a rock in the past 2 years, Snack is the biggest token, the biggest project, the biggest community on Cardano. We've started as a meme coin more than 2.5 years ago. Now, obviously, we're a suite of 6 different products. One of many being the Snack Fund, which is responsible for more than 30% of all swap on the chain. So pleasure to be here.
Nice. So, product, many people out there might think, like, is Catalyst a product, or is USDM a product, or yes, Snack meme coins, is that a problem? Or DReps, where you can get some tokens into your wallet. But when it comes to the product community, they look like like a wider scope. And guess what? I think that 2026, 2025, that's going to be like the year when the accredited investors come into our ecosystem. There are ETFs coming forward there, and even though the president, of the world's biggest economy, they have, they then done a lot to overhaul their crypto policy, to put it mildly. And I think that for the next 5 years going forward, I think things are getting serious here. Then we're gonna have like a lot of eyes on Cardano. To start off, this debate, why you guys think that Cardano needs to exist? What qualities do you think that those kind of people are looking to for us in the ecosystem? And I see Kyle there thinking a lot. You need 5 minutes, or you want to go first?
No, I don't need 5 minutes. There's a lot of things. Number one, we need revenue, right? That we have a revenue problem in the ecosystem. And these are intrinsic problems that we have to solve before we can be attractive. I think at a higher grade, and it's sustainability. And we can get into the types of revenue and whatnot, but we've got a lot of things on the radar. The other thing we need is the conditions for entrepreneurs to be able to achieve product market fit. So it equates to, a set of features, and whatnot. And that's another thing we work on. And then we kind of we've got to figure out a way to make governance sellable. Right now, I think that, in our world, it's a huge, we marketed it as a huge value prop or benefit to the ecosystem. But, when you're selling at a really high level, that could be also seen as a liability in a lot of ways. It's an immature ecosystem. So we got some work to do there. And then I think we need to kind of, as a community, really coalesce around a vision. There's different markets. I'm super glad that Rafa's here. They're looking at a very specific market that I'm particularly not necessarily looking at, but that doesn't mean that they can't coexist, right? And so, that's just my 2 cents. And then from that, revenue and ecosystem sustainability, then it goes into censorship resistance. And those are the types of things that, like, Christina's working on, alternate nodes and having those in place. And these are just my personal, me laying it out, not necessarily in any particular priority. We can always debate that. But yeah, we need revenue, we need censorship resistance, we need market fit.
So when you, let's say, talk about revenue income, are you talking like income for DReps or income for Pragma or other blockchain transaction fees?
No, the ecosystem. So you've got X amount of ADA in circulating supply, and you've got Y amount of ADA that's total supply. And that difference is the reward reserves, right? And those reserves are depleting very gradually every 5 days. So stake pool operators are getting paid and stakers are getting paid. The yield on that is very small, and it's decreasing. We used to be around 4.5%, 5%, now around 2.5%. It's not attractive. We need to, the idea was that those reward reserves would be supplemented by transaction fees. And if you just look at the raw tax, we could saturate the chain today and still not generate enough revenue to replace reward reserves. Those reward reserves pay the SPOs, and that's what keeps the network going. And so a long time ago, or for a long time, we thought transaction fees were going to be mostly the way to do it. And that's just not the case. Like, we have opportunities. We can leverage active treasury management, whether it be, kind of like the stablecoin proposition that's out now that's going to generate some yield for the treasury. I like the idea of investing equity, getting equity for the treasury. So there's equity returns. And if we leverage partner chains and do it right, we can incentivize partner chains to basically reward ADA holders in their partner native asset, effectively multiplying out the returns. And that creates that alleviates a huge burden on what we need to do as an ecosystem. So we get 5 or 6 partner chains that are all paying returns to ADA holders. SPOs are taken care of, and now we got good secure yields, right, for investors that kind of like, you know, security, like bond like security, but higher margins. And that gives us a heck of a lot more leniency on what we need to be able to do from a transaction volume perspective and transaction fee revenue. So that's what I mean by revenue. If we don't solve the revenue problem, game over. It's game over. So
thanks for putting your view on that one, Kyle. So Christina, why do you think Cardano needs to exist, and what qualities do you think our users and investors are looking at?
I mean, Cardano matters because it's built for resilience. We've avoided centralization traps. We've embedded governance into the protocol itself. We've cultivated one of the best SPO communities in crypto. I mean, I came here for the tech. The tech is solid. That's what we're excited to build on. So Cardano is not just any blockchain. We're truly doing things different. I know it's a simple answer, but it's a simple answer.
Yeah. But like, for example, you know, let's take my father. You know, he really don't think of so much about, you know, being a stake pool operator, or perhaps he's not so interested in being a DRep, and he perhaps maybe not so so eager to use Cardano because it's resilient or something. But is there any like qualities that you can give to the generation, let's say a little bit older than us, and what are like the younger generation looking at? What do you think, Christina?
I mean, when I think about what the young generation is looking at, they're looking at how they can use the blockchain, and it's not just the finance side of things. They want to know what else they can do with it. And so I think about some of the awesome projects we have, like Stuff.io and Book.io. That's exciting. And it's not that difficult to onboard somebody who has those interests. When we were at Rare, we actually onboarded somebody because he was very anti-Cardano. He was like, no, I don't like blockchain. I don't like Cardano. You know, I just invest in Bitcoin. And that was how he was. And we talked to him about different things. We found out he's a musician. We literally onboarded him that night. He was super stoked to find out that he could still own his music and still share it with everybody. So we are bringing something that the younger generation is looking for. And the older generation, I mean, that's going to vary a lot. Some of us are Gen X and boomers, and we're still involved in the tech, but a lot of them are looking for how they're going to make money. And that's going to be more of the Kyle and Rafa that lead us there.
Yeah. And that's nice not to brought out, because Rafa, Christina was mentioning NFTs, you know. Do Cardano have good NFTs? Is that like a quality that we can put forward to the ecosystem, and why do you think Cardano needs to exist?
If Cardano has good NFTs, it's a big question. I think NFTs, in the way that they existed back then, probably not sustainable. The way that they might exist in the future, probably a bit more sustainable for the real technology behind it, not the hype behind it. Obviously, tokens have taken the place of the hype, and now we're seeing more and more like sustainable financing using tokens. So that's really interesting. But I do want to answer your question by coming back to something that Cal said at the beginning, because that's really core to everything that we do and everything that I've been vocal for the past 2 years, is that Cardano has a serious problem right now. Similar to the US, it's super simple, to put it like as simple as I could for anyone, as similar to the US as a country, spending more than we're making revenue. So the bank is just depleting. That's as simple as that. And as an ecosystem right now, if we don't find ways to generate more in the bank, we will run out of money and we will eventually die as an ecosystem. And so that's certainly like with projects like ours, with projects like the people around the table, like we can achieve some of this stuff, but really it needs to be more of an ecosystem movement. And so what I would, to answer your question, I think I would take a small step back and say that what Cardano needs, what I'm really bullish about, is that we need to embrace more of a commercial mindset. It's not like one particular thing. It's actually an entire mindset that I would, every time I'm talking to people, every time I'm jumping in a meeting, that's always the same thing that I'm pushing forward, is that it's great that Cardano has been building the best technology out there. It was important that we did it. It's still important that we continue doing it, but now is the time to start commercializing viable things that would generate revenue. It doesn't mean that we need to stop developing good technology. It just means that we need to like put some resources toward things that before we weren't putting things towards, and that like some DReps might not be excited about putting money towards like commercial stuff. The truth is, like, the best comparison that I can find for Cardano right now is similar to universities in Canada, the US. I'll speak for what I know, which is North America. Amazing technology sleeping on the shelf. No commercial comes out of it. No money comes to the university. So what we end up having in the US, it's the private sector paying for it. In Canada, it's the government paying for it. It ends up like having a bunch of money completely lost on the shelf, because like we're financing all of those universities to develop technology that never gets to market, that never gives back money to the universities themselves. And so that's a bit what I'm seeing in Cardano. And I think, to wrap my rant here, the one thing that I would really push people to think more about in terms of what comes next for Cardano is this commercial mindset. It is not one thing in particular. It's really a lot of different little things that we need to put in place, always towards the objective. We need to be more sustainable as an ecosystem. We need to generate more revenue. Yeah, I'll stop here.
Yeah. So the TDLR is like, there's nothing wrong with the tech. The blockchain is just fine. We are decentralized. We have good entities and token. So yeah, nice. What about you, James? So why do you think Cardano needs to exist, and what do you think our retail and professional investors look at as qualities for Cardano? Oh, you muted. One more time, you muted yourself. There we go.
Always somebody has to do that. Apparently, it's my turn in the barrel. So for Cardano, it is ultimately a way to provide agency to anyone wherever they live. So you're no longer subject to the rule of law or some crazy administration that's above you, giving you rules and regulations to live by just based on your GPS location. You then from there can just have and discover self-agency, and from there self-sovereignty, and then away you go into Cardano. And Cardano provides that, all portions of it, from governance to financial to social, everything that's included in that, right? But at the same time, you are now a citizen of the world, which means that you can live in Cardano and really do whatever it is that you want to do. The sky's the limit. So from there, with our governance structure, it's allowed for people to have voice, to develop consensus. Everybody's voice is important. There are voices that we don't even have in our ecosystem now that will become important in the future. And we're laying out the red carpet for those to come over and start to actually do that. From there, I think the important part here is, the way I look at it from a product point of view, is the commercial application of, let's just use remittance as a great one. Remittance is where you can transfer value from one person to another, no matter where you live. Now, currently, the system is set up so that in some cases you're paying anywhere from 15 to 20 to 30% in fees in order to be able to send a loved one across the ocean to another continent, money, or just locally within your local area, right? And that's a bit of a problem. The intermediaries there have set up so that there is no way to get around it. It's built in, and if you want to get involved in it or do business there, you have to actually incorporate that in. That's a bit of a problem. So remittance is an area of very low-hanging fruit that anybody can get into. And as Kyle alluded to and Rafa alluded to, internally, we are on a sunset, right? So we're slowly seeing less and less fee going to the estate pool operators. We're seeing less and less revenue coming out of the treasury, and at some point that will end. So the grant funding, the internal funding mechanism will slowly go away, and what will we have left? So it's important, as Rafa said, it's very imperative that we're building out things that will start to generate revenue and fees for the layer one. That means, making sure that companies looking to get involved in Cardano can actually work and operate on Cardano as a layer two, let's say, for example. So there's an off-chain component and an on-chain component. So at this point, I believe we have the tech necessary in order to be able to provide both sides of that. And the off-chain component can be that settlement layer where USDM, let's say, resides, and gets moved back and forth as a way to transfer value. And then at that point is then whatever necessary as far as the on-chain component can be put on-chain. So I believe at this point, technically we're there, and with Laos, we'll actually be even more there than we need to be. But remittance is an area I think that we should be looking at, and it is something that USDM and our parent company is looking at now.
Yeah, with Laos, then things really going to move on fast. And one of like the highlight that I got from what you were saying, James, was like permissionless. Cardano is permissionless. You can send USDM, you know, to the North Pole if you know someone living over there. Chris, you're back. I'm muted though. I will throw it for you. So why do you think Cardano needs to exist, and what qualities do you think that you know, the user or investor is actually looking at when it comes to Cardano?
Yeah, and let's be really clear to call that out. Users and investors are two very different problem sets or solution sets, right? Look, maybe we start with a framing like this. Let me ask everybody that's watching and participating in the panel, do you guys want a world that's built on fairness, sense making, where human advance is a function of how hard we're working, how talented you are, what your integrity is, right? I think, you know, most of us would answer, yeah, that's the sort of world that we would like to envision for the future. And when we think about, you know, where distributed systems could go, right, in the future, it has to be built on integrity, trust, or, you know, trustlessness, that the information or the, you know, the world that's being built around it is predicated on truth, right? So when we think about why Cardano is necessary, it's really necessary to be able to lay those foundations for creating these global truths, or your public truths, or the private truths, right? So, you know, when I think about why Cardano is necessary, when we think about how blockchains evolved really over the last years, most of it's been based on the predication of, you know, we're going to use open, public, permissionless blockchains. They're really great for, you know, decentralization, pushing maybe power out into the fringes, enabling people to have more of a voice, and all these things. But really, you know, we're only beginning to see the maturation of that infrastructure and capability now, nearly 10 years later, right? So what we've seen is that there are ecosystems that come and go. There is infrastructure that comes and goes, and we haven't seen the loss of liveliness within this ecosystem. In fact, if anything, it seems to be getting you know, more robust, more resilient. We've got more people playing a role, right? So why do we need to exist? Well, I really believe that Cardano needs to exist in order to lay those foundations and pave the pathway for people to believe that there are alternate ways of organizing and getting things done, right? It's not just about utility and use cases, although I wholeheartedly agree with Rafa that where we need to move to is this more commercial mindset. But there's this whole people power quality and characteristic that is really baked into the DNA of Cardano and the governance that we've all participated in over the last years. So then coming to your other question, you know, what do retail investors and retail users and other investors look for? Well, you know, to back everybody else up, yeah, for Cardano to be relevant in the next 5 years, we absolutely need use cases that are producing high volume transactions and therefore producing net returns and revenues back into the treasury to be able to distribute out to those that operate. That is the only way that really the Cardano ecosystem will survive. It has to have utility and use cases. The benefit that I think that we've got going for it, or some of the real strengths, is that we've already figured out the governance processes. We've got a lot of the capability for being able to stand behind and defend that we've got a fully distributed, decentralized infrastructure that we can trust, we can believe, we know is not going to fall over tomorrow, And now we've got the benefit of the maturation of startups and their innovations and their proof of concepts reaching, enterprise or government or adoption levels, right? So, I think that we've got a lot of the ingredients that are really there to start sparking the investor class to be very interested in the sorts of utilities and use cases and applications that are coming out. And then on how do we get mom and pop and grandma and grandpa involved? Well, let's be honest. I don't really think that they're the ones that are going to be buying meme coins or NFTs anytime soon, unless it provides real utility to them, and they don't even realize that they're using a blockchain. So, really to also back up Rafa's point, you don't need to know that the internet works or that email works to know that it's better than the plain old telephone system or postal service, right? You don't need to know how it works, just that it's better. Right. So we get all these applications, enterprise use cases that are going to adopt the blockchain because it provides efficiencies for them. And then those benefits roll out to the end users that don't even realize that they're using a blockchain. That's really where I see things going over the next years.
Yeah, very nice. So use cases and interface that people understand how it works. UI, as we say it in the space. Rafa, you mentioned, resilience and partner change the mindset, if I recall it correctly. So in Cardano today, what do you see as like the most pressing challenge, like, and how has this like basically affected SNEC community? Like, can you tell like how is like these issues affecting SNEC?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the most pressing challenge, I think it's okay. So there's a couple of things, right? And I think a lot of people might agree around the table at minimum, Kyle, is that when you're building an ecosystem, yes, you can try to build a sustainable business by yourself, but you also need the ecosystem to kind of make your business sustainable in some ways. When you're building a business, and again, my background, I'm a software engineer and I worked almost 10 years in VC. So my background is like startups and making companies sustainable in the long term. Obviously, most projects, SNEC being one of them, most projects in crypto and Cardano haven't raised from VCs because we don't have VCs on Cardano. So then when you don't have really private investors that are investing in companies, the only way you can do it is more of a similar like university or public sector ways that like you get financed by different kind of grant system. So the Cardano Treasury, the Catalyst program, all of those different things. Hopefully this gets your business off the ground. And then hopefully you get to a point where you can generate enough revenue to be able to build your business into something sustainable. The problem that we see from a business perspective, and I'm not necessarily talking about ours because I consider ourselves really lucky in that like we're one of them that are able to be sustainable by the nature of everything we do. But a lot of businesses that are amazing products that I use every day on Cardano, either they are not necessarily able to generate enough revenue because the business revenue model is somewhat broken, or the market is not necessarily there because we need more onboarding, we need more people to come to Cardano. And so that's like when it comes to like building a business, what's challenging for us, what's challenging for all of the other builders on the chain is figuring out how to become sustainable. And so since we can't really solve the VC or private investor problem, like there's things that are being done right now. I'm happy to like try to push those things forward as it's my background as well, but like that won't be solved tomorrow. So since we can't solve that part, we have like the public grants, but the public grants programs can do everything for the startups. So then we're left with a third thing that I talked about, which was making sure that our user pool, our market, is increasing. And so everything that we do at SNEC in the past couple of years has always been towards user acquisition, user onboarding, trying to bring more people to Cardano. Because as an ecosystem, that's probably the only thing that we can do for now, is trying to bring more people so we increase the market size so we can make more businesses sustainable. There's certainly like other challenges in the ecosystem. I think there's too many repetitions. I think there's too many programs that are financing things that have zero commercial potential. That's like all of those things are like different problems. But if I was to address one thing that like obviously from a SNEC perspective, that like keeps me up at night is really like user onboarding, onboarding more people from other chain. And that's where like partner chain, that's where building real product that have real use case, that have real potential for the users to be coming on the chain and using it, adds a lot of value there. Because again, if I come back to what I said earlier, and I swear to God I'll stop talking after that, if I come back to what I said earlier, it's great building great technology, but really what we need right now is product to onboard people. We might have the best decentralization like software that runs on the nodes and everything, but the truth is, mom and pop, like when they're trying to use a wallet in Cardano, they're really lost. When they're trying to sell or buy something, they're really lost. When they're trying to do something else, they're really lost. So like we can say what we want about Solana. It's a really broken ecosystem for many different reasons. But when you try to onboard on Solana, you get really easy products to onboard with. And it's really easy to use. And so that's basically it. Ramble of thoughts, but I hope I was answering some parts of the questions there.
And so
you got them all.
So I wanted to tack on.
It's 12:30 a.m. here, so I'm trying.
I wanted to tack on to something as well, because I know Kyle has also probably wanted to do it as well. One of the things, and Rafa said it, right? So onboarding new users is extraordinarily important. And I've always viewed SNEC as that particular mechanism, along with Hosky as well. Meme tokens are a way to onboard people into our ecosystem. Getting onto centralized exchanges and getting listed there then actually promotes our brand through their brand, and then brings people over into our ecosystem. And there's direct impact from that, not just from new users coming in, but also from SNEC itself benefiting. And if anybody hasn't noticed, in the lending and borrowing area or sector, they are extraordinarily working quite a bit in that particular area, and bringing in new liquidity, bringing in new users and activity, two, making it more familiar and normalizing using DeFi, getting loans, supplying, all those things, right? And they in essence are almost single-handedly supporting these dApps and getting people to actually use it for the first time. As I always said, you need a fire starter in order to get the fire going. And if you do not have one, then from there, you're just sitting there with a cold pot. And that's not a good way to go. USDM has been directly impacted by its use and its user base simply because of what SNEC has done with their particular work within our ecosystem and outside of our ecosystem. It's been extraordinary. And I can throw Hosky in there as well as what Hosky did in the beginning, right? Without them, we wouldn't have had transaction volume on chain. We wouldn't have actually tested our layer 1 to its extreme, which he did, right? Or that particular team did. So it's actually important. So yeah. And then of course, and I'll throw drip drops in there as well, as actually one of the things that actually pushed our transaction volume as well. So yes, these are things that we absolutely need, but it's extraordinarily important that the community knows just exactly what SNEC is doing and why they're doing it. And since Rafa explained what he did for a living, it makes perfect sense as to why I thought they were a good business crew right from the get-go. When I went to NFT XLV and they had a energy drink there for the first time, I'm like, okay, these guys are actually on top of shit. So excuse my language. Anyway, that's all I got. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I kind of wanted to bring a little bit to it too. You guys made a lot of really good points, and this kind of brings it full circle of why having a 2030 vision in place is so important, because we come together collectively and say, this is where we want to go as a community, and it defines scope, and it eliminates a lot of this outside stuff that's happening. Because if we're going to be able to achieve, ecosystem sustainability via revenue, we've got to spend well while we get there. It's not going to be easy to do. And back to Rafa's comments, the market it's not here for startups to survive. I'm just going to be blunt about it. It's not. And so, we at Drip Drops have been, having to get external contracts and pushing outside the ecosystem and actually trying to, push into the ocean and opportunities there. And so I see both sides of it. I see extreme value in what the SNEC team is doing relevant to positioning to capture a lot of this existing market. But outside of DeFi, it's arguable that huge product market fit is taking place. And obviously remittances are there as well, but kind of outside of that financial application, we haven't really hit that yet. But I think that, we've got to come full circle. We've got to get a vision. We've got to get kind of on the same page with how we're going to get there. And I think we can probably reduce overall ecosystem funding by 60-70% if we're smart about it.
Mm-hmm. So, by the way, to everybody listening in, thank you so much for all the comments in the comments field. I'm a little bit curious. I don't know about the others here, but if people could just comment with where they're from, like what country. That I always like to do that. And I see there is some questions there as well.
Yeah. I want to address some of these guys' questions in here. Got a gentleman that says, I still disagree. Cardano is for the people, but of course, if VCs will sponsor a useful product, then and only then it could make sense. I am prepared to listen for good arguments as to why VCs are needed. Projects. Yeah, that's.
I want to jump in after on that question, but go for it, Kyle, first.
Go ahead, Rob. No, I've been yapping. Go ahead, buddy.
No. Okay. I just want to jump in on that one because I think there's a really negative connotation to anything VC related. Obviously, on Twitter, when people started discovering myself and other people of the ecosystem, it feels like they're just jumping to the gun because they hear VC. I don't exactly know where it comes from in the Cardano ecosystem that we all hate VC so much. The concept of a VC, and I just want to make it clear, the reason why VC exists in the real world, like forget about crypto for a second. Like in the 90s, like technology was new, the internet was just invented. The problem is like certain business are just too risky to go to banks, are just too risky to go to private investors. So you need sophisticated investors that understand how to invest in certain type of businesses because it's a complete different revenue model. Obviously, we can all agree that from the 90s to now, the VC model has kind of gone rogue with A16Zs, like being in the tens of billions of dollars and things like that. Like the model has changed from what at its core it was meant to be. But at its core, what a VC was meant to be, it was to be an investor more founder friendly than a bank is. More founder friendly because the only way that you could finance a technology company back then, it was to put your house as a collateral. It makes no sense to do that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So now if we take that concept, that theory into practice, into the 2025 crypto world, is that like there's still a lot of things that we do in crypto that are way too risky for normal type of investors that exist out there. Yes, obviously there's certain lending platform that you could use in the crypto world to finance your companies, things like that. But then we're coming back to the same problem. Cardano doesn't have enough liquidity, doesn't have enough depth to finance a real company that would want to finance themselves. Like some people are asking us, why are you trying to get the 5 million loan from the treasury? Is that like, there's no actual platform where we could actually get a really good term from a loan perspective. Like the depth is just not there yet. So now, like, I want to come back to the VC, like there's still a place in our ecosystem because we're so early, because there's so many things that are risky for another type of investor that is not necessarily on-chain investing, that is not a bank, because a bank will never invest, but that is actually like a pocket of money that is ready to invest in things that are a bit more risky. And why VCs are usually so important is because their head is a bit different than a banker. They're not only thinking about revenue right now, they're thinking about the potential, the future potential of the market, the future potential of what you're building. And normally, and I say normally because there's been bad example in the world in the past couple of years, normally a VC will be more founder friendly and will be more understandable of the future. A banker only looks at number. A VC, an early stage VC, looks at the potential of many different things. And so if I come back to the question, the reason why I believe that VCs are so important for early ecosystem is that to have a sustainable ecosystem, you could look at any type of other chains considered ecosystem. You could look at physical, geographical ecosystem like Silicon Valley, New York, Boston, all of those, like London. Those ecosystem always kickstart the same way. You need early investors that are investing in technology. This technology will eventually become a successful company that will exit, create liquidity for its founder. They will reinvest into the ecosystem and become those investors themselves, and will create that flywheel effect of having good companies that are generating money, generating wealth, generating people that are reinvesting into the ecosystem. The truth is now, I'm done, one sentence. The truth is right now, I'm so sorry, Kyle. The truth is right now, there's probably one or two projects on Cardano that have the means to be able to reinvest. And one of them probably being Charles. And so it's pretty fucked if you're asking me. Like we need more of those, and we need to kickstart this ecosystem so this flywheel can be started.
Yeah, no, I was going to say this is a perfect example of what I think Rafa was alluding to, of the ecosystem needs to change its mindset and come around. And I'm just going to be blunt about it, guys. The way the system's designed right now, all the biggest DReps will be the biggest entities providing products and services on Cardano. We've already seen evidence of that. A lot of stake, and this is a little murky area, but a lot of stake actually went to Goofy Chris for a while, relevant, because they want support behind your proposal. But a very clear example of what I just stated is the Emergo Yoroi DRep. You had a large service that's leveraging their user base to delegate to them in one way or capacity. If a big entity comes on chain and starts providing, a service in the form of RWAs, but does it in a way that's going to achieve product market fit, e.g. obfuscating the complexity of the blockchain from the end users, that entity can build up a supply of native asset via menu TXO, e.g. voting power, right? And that's going to be the largest DReps in the future. And so, yes, Cardano is for the people, but Cardano is also for the entrepreneurs who are going to build and deliver solutions to the people. And so if that's not a future we want, we have to look at that governance, but that's inevitable of how I see things going, at least.
Maybe if I add a couple of quick points to this. So I think, one question to answer in the audience is, do you like using apps on your phone? Do they provide you utility? Almost all of them were VC backed, the ones that you really use, because those VC resources are to help to go and grow businesses to the next stage, take them to the next stage. That might be providing them resources to go market, or to bring on new team members, or to establish strategic partnerships. The shift of mindset needs to not be everything can come from the treasury and we'll be all right. You need these other ecosystem coordinators, follow-on financiers, to be able to take businesses to the next level. The other part to that is that investors bring network, they bring expertise, they bring their own portfolio of businesses that if you're invested in by an A16Z partner, you're probably going to get hooked up with a bunch of other A16Z startups and businesses to partner with and amplify what you guys are doing. So, that's the reason why you need investor networks, to look at the treasury as being the one and only source of resources, and that's okay. Misses out on all of the other incidental benefits that you get from having venture capital that sits behind you. Now, the other side of this is do you like to participate in ICOs, IDOs, ISPOs? If you 10x, are you likely to go and take some of that and put it into other projects? Well, you're just doing exactly the same as what VCs do. It's just on a different scale, right? So we need to think about that, the sorts of operators and people that participate in crypto today, buying lots of tokens or different projects that they believe in, is kind of not too different from the approach that angels, seed capital providers and VCs take. It's just on a slightly different scale.
Yeah, solid argument, Chris. And by the way, I just want to see here. So we have people. Oh, I see even someone from Norway ticking in here. That's nice. Australia. Oh, what is it? New Jersey, Netherlands, Denmark. Yeah, it's good to see we have several people from the Nordics supporting up here. I have reminding in time where, of course, people in chat, we're going to have the availability to ask questions to the panel. Just give us like a couple of minutes. But I have one more question to the panel here. And I think I'm going to start with James. So apparently, on, let's say, Cardano as a product, there is a lot of stuff that needs to be done. But if you're gonna and you have put up a lot, of let's say milestones to reach in the Cardano product committee. But if you want one thing that is very urgent, James, we need to do this before 2027. What would that be, James?
Mobile applications. So the majority of people, when we talk to people outside industrialized countries, they typically live on their phone. Not a lot of people have the funds necessary, the means necessary to have a computer, laptop, unless they go to a community center or things of that nature. So for the most part, most everybody lives on their phones and works on mobile apps and things of that nature. I know I do. You know, if it wasn't for this particular thing and what we do here, I would be on my phone all the time for everything I did. As a matter of fact, I ran my business 30 years. 15 of it, literally, I build out. I did almost every single thing on my phone using apps. So I didn't even require a computer in order to be able to do that. That was quite a fun thing to do. And it also freed me up to not be stuck in a chair sitting behind a computer screen. This also then makes it a lot easier and more affordable for those who live in these countries where they don't have the means necessary in order to be able to access. You know, in some cases, we found that people don't even have the ability to pay for a monthly subscription for internet access, which then limits them the ability to be able to even be involved in governance, let's say, for example. So we're losing voices in Africa. When I talked to Mercy, for example, that was a big part of why it was important that we were able to assist or help there. Yes, economically, some of the things that we're trying to reverse engineer with using blockchain in order to put our medical records or, you know, school records on chain, and then allow them to be able to move wherever they want within whatever part of the world they're going to, and those records actually be available to the next institution that they go to. Very important, obviously, right? But we were unable to accomplish that due to some of the, let's just say, lack of, you know, the governance people that we were working with, you know, those particular magistrates, things of that nature. They were less than dependable. Let's just put it that way. So now we've kind of pivoted a little bit and we're moving in a different direction. That doesn't mean that we leave those people behind. And this then, from a mobile point of view, needs to happen. This is something that Charles championed early on. Project One was the original name of what ended up being LACE. Later on down the road, and it was something that we were working very hard in order to do. Mithril was and I'm not the tech guy, a tech layer for that particular thing in order to provide those who are building mobile apps to work on Cardano and be able to give access to those walking around the world without a computer in their backpack. And then from there, once you give them access, then we have the ability to be able to reach everybody where they are, which I think is the main ethos of the product committee, is to be able to reach people where they are, not make them come to us. You know, so very important.
I really agree with you there, James. Mobile application, and just to throw the ball to Christina. So if there is one thing that we really need to do before 2027, like it's urgent, what would that be from your point of view?
I think we've talked a good bit about the need for accessibility for end users. We need use cases. We need to make this easy. We need to make this so that they can use it without even thinking about using it. But the other aspect, still onboarding. Developer onboarding needs to be a priority. I think we need to cut onboarding time. I think that we should be able to measure thousands of active contributors, hundreds of projects that don't rely on an entity for survival. We need to be self-sustaining builders. So we need to cut that time down. We need to double the number of active contributors. And I think that's going to be how we measure adoption and the health of the ecosystem. So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, hitting those small, clear wins is going to build the momentum we need to get to our 2030 goals.
Yeah, I totally agree. And now, people, the favorite part, we're going to let the chat ask some questions. We still have approximately
real quick,
is it 10 minutes?
Yeah. Real quick. I think we also need to learn how to say no as a community. We need to look at initiatives, and it's good that people are building and want to build. There are certain things that need to be built that we don't need revenue from, right? Like, you know, stuff that Pragma's working on, like whatever. We don't need revenue from that. That creates so many values outside of that. But, you know, certain projects at some point, you know, as a community, we got to call a spade, right? And allow entrepreneurs to fail. It is okay to fail. And I think that's another thing we need.
Maybe just to add to that, throwing my two Lovelace, and this is going to be contentious out there, but before 2027, we need to ring fence a pretty big budget for marketing, not just attending conferences, but putting, you know, resources behind actually amplifying this ecosystem, paying for professional agencies to do a good job, pick up the startups and scale ups that are building you know, utility and use cases, and have them marketed by actual professionals and put in front of people's faces, whether that's enterprises or the retail community, to get adoption. People can say that marketing is a waste of money, and, you know, all you're going to do is get a bunch of Cardano branded soap bars. And I can tell you that is not what marketing really is all about. You need to have resources and firepower to really take you know, businesses to the next stage. That comes with investment, that comes with allocation of resources from a treasury. We can be smart about it, but we need to learn how to take those steps.
Yeah. Oh, I see a question here from Chicken Ada. That's a voice we recognize in the community. But I would like to ask Christina one question before that. So there is a question here that in the future there will only be a few DReps calling the shots on the Cardano ecosystem. What do you think about that, Christina?
It's controversial. In part, it's by design. Nobody's forcing people to choose the DReps they're choosing. So I think this is something we really need to think about what we want out of it, because we've given people their choice and they've made their choice. And now we're saying, well, I don't think you made the right choice. Is that really where we want to go? I don't know. Do we want to encourage more people to be DReps? Vote your own voice? Again, that's a tough one.
I think it's becoming a really hard job as well. Like we can see it, like some DReps are retiring because it's too much pressure, it's too much noise on social media. Even like people like Utah famously said, like, I have way too much, like it makes no sense, like it's impossible. Can you imagine like being in their shoes and trying to fulfill the interest of 800 million people, like 800 million ADA worth for the people? It's just impossible. Like if we think about it from like a decentralization government perspective, where it's like each DRep is supposed to represent like their own little village or whatever, like like big DReps like that are not really sustainable in that way. But yeah, anyway, like that's just food for thought here, but that feels like something that might be on the lookout for change.
So do you think potentially that we could see DRep diversity, but it start to look more like consortiums or MBOs of their own, where they're starting to get together as communities based on what they're like? We've got the node group, right, where everybody is looking for node diversity and their ideas there on that. If they group together as a community and developed a DRep that, you know, was able then voting as the voting mechanism for that, you know, the tool, right? So I think we could see that. We could see also DRep diversity where there's a large group of people that part of a community in a underserved part of the world that then gets together and finds that when they group all of their ADA together under one DRep, that they will find more voice there. So I think that also can happen as well. But you've got to be able to champion that in order to ensure that people's voice is heard. Apathy is really a difficult thing to get past. If people become apathetic, they don't believe that their voice counts anymore. I have plenty of friends that don't believe voting in the US elections, there's no point to it anymore. They don't even bother. And it's just simply because they don't feel their voice can be heard. I always bring up the fact that there was a bunch of people that died specifically, went up against the largest army in the world in order to become part of their own nation instead of, you know, being ruled by another. And from there, we should just at least honor that. So just go vote just specifically for that reason. But in fact, you know, a lot of people just lose their desire to do that because they feel as though they no longer matter. So it's important that we make sure that people still feel as though they matter. How do we champion that in order to make sure that maybe they don't know individually that they can do it, but as a group they can? I'm not sure how that would work, but
I think it's also over time. Yeah, I think it's also like we're seeing it like in action over time, where at first because it hasn't even been a year, right, that the Constitution was like ratified in November. So let's think about it a bit from, like, I'm like you, like I would like tomorrow our system to be really efficient, but just what we're seeing right now with, like, for example, my partner Goofy Crisp, it's like he went from, like, I don't know, 10 million to, like, I think 35 or 40 million now, because the truth is, like, it's clear, if you believe in commercial stuff, if you believe in like going cross, like bringing people from cross-chain and adoption, it's like you put your ADA towards like Goofy, you put your ADA towards like Utah. If you believe in something, you put your, like, so I think it'll more and more like get to that point where people like the way that certain DReps are thinking about things, and they'll put their ADA to work. But yeah, in the meantime, I do agree that it's a bit painful because it does feel a bit centralized in like 8 people that you need to.
Well, I think we also need to empower the end users, because they're delegating their ADA, and we need to make sure that they're staying on top of their DReps, that they actually know how they're voting, and that they understand you can move your delegation at any point. So I think the right tools, the accessibility, making this easy, convenient, is going to help them a lot.
Yeah, I seen the same increase in myself. I had a very limited amount of ADA that was a part of my DRep, and I went 1,000% up in total DRep, and it's just simply because I made my voice heard, having to do with particular things that I thought were important, and then apparently it just vibed with a few people, and they delegated their ADA to it, which was really a cool thing, a vote of confidence, I guess, in the way I think about things here in Cardano, which I don't think I'm an outlier. I think most of us kind of think along the same lines. But anyway, so yeah, definitely cool to see that.
Need a few more facts as well, right? Like, we've only, as Raf was saying, we've only done this once, and it's not even been a year, right? We need to swing that bat a few more times, get a bit more muscle memory, see how the ADA sort of shifts around. And also, you know, you wait till the game gets changed in Catalyst Fund 14 with quadratic voting and giving way more share of voice to people that have much, much less ADA. Let's see what effect that has, you know, upstream on, you know, creating a demand to play more of a role and have more.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
You know, my thought process here, and I'm gonna say something probably a little controversial at some point, which is not new. You know, I already alluded that I think DReps are going to be very large entities, and as these gentlemen stated earlier, we're not at steady state. We're seeing some of the stakes shift, and it's possibly going to be likely DRep compensation comes into play. It's going to get a lot nastier, you know, as far as or more aggressive as far as how DReps pursue their stake. But ultimately, you know, we're still in the early stages of experimentation, and decentralization isn't the goal. It's a tactic. The goal is censorship resistance, right? So just an example, you can have too much of one thing. You know, we need water to live, but if you drink too much, it'll kill you, right? That's just kind of the comparison. But the reality is our governance system is operating right now because the stake pool operators allow it. We have a layer of censorship resistance built in, and that's collectively. That's not any one individual, but as Christina alluded earlier, we have an amazing community of stake pool operators, and we communicate. And there have been times in the past when we've collectively stood our ground as an ecosystem, and so we do have protections in place.
Yeah. So we have about 2 minutes more left, and we shouldn't forget about the Chicken Ada's question. And I thought maybe I will just throw this to you, Rafa. Is there a path to bring VCs to the Cardano?
Yeah, good to see you, Chicken. I hope you're still there. Yeah, I mean, there is a path. Obviously, there's some things in the making right now from VCs in the US that were somewhat interested in the ecosystem. I think, like, just to name like a couple programs that have been existing over the past like year or so that we're working with you, Chris, if I'm not mistaken, Catalyst, is that like obviously the Techstars team. I think we're interested with the, wow, I have the biggest blank ever. Can you help me, Chris?
Let me look up. So Techstars, which is the world's most active startup investor, they are running the Cardano Catalyst Founder program. We've got CV Labs running the Cardano Accelerator. Draper University.
Draper, thank you.
That's
the word I was looking for.
Yeah. And then UNDP with Emergo Labs. Now, the interesting thing here is, like, there's always the pathway that's here. The thing is it's all good for them. It's free money, right? So, you know, they've got to put their money where their mouth is and actually start making investments, and we see a return on those. But here's the cool thing. They are already here. They are already beginning to look at what's going on. And here's the one thing that I heard from Draper. They said that the Cardano startups that went there through their program were more prepared, more proactive, more business savvy than startups that have been in other programs. Who knows whether that's what they say to all the Web3 ecosystems. But my point is I can believe it, because we've built this rhythm of people being accountable and delivering what they say they're going to deliver. So I can see that they, these teams get to Draper and they're already well equipped to go through and take all that in. The question is now about how do we grow that pool? And how do we grow that pool organically, so it's not about just drawing resources from the treasury to fund these programs where there's no then return inherently back into the ecosystem? We need to think about how those mechanisms to either put returns back into treasury or create the flywheel that Rafa was sort of talking about at the start.
Yeah, and I think that's where, like, I think it's important to really separate, and I'll try to be quick here, but in building an ecosystem, there's like many things that you need. One of them, like I said, is this support system, this first investor in. Some parts of it will be accelerators, like Chris just mentioned, which is really important because you want to take really juniors entrepreneurs or green entrepreneurs and like get them to a point where they can run the company, like inject a small check, see how they do, and then we inject a bigger check. So I think the first part of the funnel here is, it could be better. It could always be better. We could have like 1,000 accelerators, like helping founders. It would be great, but at least we have a couple that have been around and that been trying things. I think what we need now is more of this second check, third check in, which is really gonna push those companies forward to achieve sustainability as a company. And truly, like, this is gonna be the hard piece to figure out. But I mean, as you can imagine, like Snack, we were one of the first ones to propose like a loan model. I think, like, obviously those VCs coming in, like the idea, like the way that a VC fund works is that like you take money from investors, you invest, you generate return, and then you return money to the investors with a certain premium on it. So to think that like it wouldn't be like necessarily a grant, or it wouldn't be like free money in this case, and I think it could make a lot of sense from a Cardano ecosystem. The one thing I want to finish on here, and I guess it's good for anything, but really I want us to be like nicer to each other in certain ways. I do agree with Kyle that we need to be good at saying no, but there's no reason to treat each other the way that people have been treating each other on Twitter in the past like year or so. It's been honestly disgusting to watch. The truth is, we need VCs, we need builders, we need more governance people, we need SPOs, we need all of those people to build the ecosystem that we have. We need to be more respectful toward each other, and we need to stop like jumping to conclusion the moment we hear VC, the moment we hear something that we think it's not good. Let's just start with the first thing, which is let's ask a question before posing a judgment. And honestly, like recently I've had the most awful experience with one of the big DReps out there and like threads and things like that. And something really wonderful happened yesterday. We ended up like being connected by other people. We jumped on a call last night. Cool. I answered all of his questions with Goofy, and he ended up being like, oh, like, thanks, I appreciate it. Like, it doesn't mean that he's agreeing with everything we say, but it means that like we can obliviate the being not nice to each other, because I don't find the word I'm looking for. But really, that's the only thing I would say, is that like if we want to achieve anything, we need to start working together as an ecosystem. We need to stop like pushing it with VCs, because they'll go in another ecosystem. That's the truth of it. So
yeah, we're starting to see more and more of that. So I'm glad that happened with Snack for sure.
I have great news for you guys. Since we literally have taken over all the social media to Cardano Foundation now, we have been given permission to run the show a little bit further, like 10 minutes. Is that okay with you guys? Because I have a couple of more questions from the community here. We talked about, who was it? I think it was James. Was it you that talked about mobile application? Or
yes.
Yeah. So, and I saw actually a question here in the chat, that is there any tools like Flutter for building mobile apps? And I see you, Chris, you were on there. Please just very quickly explain what the Flutter is, and do we have the means and tools, or is there something cooking out from the Catalyst proposals that will make this happen?
Yeah, I won't be able to kind of give save the day with this one, but yeah, Flutter is effectively a development framework for producing front end, where effectively reuse the code base so that it is useful across desktop and mobile at the same time, right? It's super cool that way. Now, if you were to go and have a look at what Facebook or Meta or, you know, a bunch of the big tech platforms are doing, they're actually shifting their infrastructure to be using Flutter as a basis for their front ends. And yeah, so, you know, we're thinking about it through the lens of, you know, how do we demonstrate that we can create something for desktop and then not have it be having to reinvent the wheel just to create other apps. I can't say that we've got a whole bunch of tools. I think there was a Catalyst proposal to do some more Flutter SDK stuff for Cardano. Not sure where it went. And if it hasn't been funded, maybe they should reapply. And yeah, that's about all I can say there. But the key thing is that it seems to be a challenger development framework that seems to be growing in popularity and having you know, great effects across some of the most scaled applications on the planet today.
I see a comment there as well from Matthew that Vesper has been a big user of Flutter. So okay, so we got the tools. One more last question for you guys, and this might be a tricky one, I think. So I know this is not only a Cardano thing, but you know, most retail users, they interact with crypto through centralized exchange. And for me, I feel like they are missing out of like the whole Skabushi, you know, they're only having like the 10% experience of using a blockchain. What do you guys think we can do to actually make people create a Eternal or Vesper wallet? Is it like seedless phrase wallets, or what do you guys do? You have any ideas, Kyle?
That's part of it. You can do seedless wallets. You can do Google sign-in with wallets and things like that, you know, to where you're not really onboarding and it's still self-custodial. But and you do need to do that. There's no way the UX is too much for mass adoption. There's too much friction. I don't think there's no real path to do it, because right now you look at the majority of the market here. A lot of people, new users, are here because they think they're going to make money somehow, and that's a hard scale, right? Because everybody who makes money, it's at the expense of everybody else coming in. So it's you know, it's the UX that's the number one on the consumer side. How do you fix it? You know, you can do products that, you know, Cardano's unique. You know, we've got split staking and payment keys, right? So you can get really clever with that, relevant to a user experience. So I think the answer is somewhere in there if that's what you're looking for. But like mainstream, I think it's going to be custodial, like huge adoption.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree with Kyle. Same thing. And just from personal experience, the reason I came into Cardano, I didn't buy it until it actually launched on Coinbase. I know that sounds crazy to some, but I refused to get into crypto without it being SEC regulated. And I had some sort of backdrop in order to ensure that the money I was going to invest, I had a way to actually extract it back out if they were to, you know, say go under or through their own efforts, let's say, some sort of dereliction of duty there. So for me, it required me to see those particular things in order to make that happen. I'm not sure if the newest generation or the last two generations are that stuck as I am. I am, of course, a grandfather Gen X. I know some think I'm the one after that, but I'm not. But ultimately, it required me to have that particular security first before I jumped in. So mass adoption for a lot of people, it's going to require these centralized authorities, which they've been conditioned to think have their best interests at heart, to say that it's okay. We're currently starting to see that now, where ETFs and ETPs are starting to pop up. Governments are starting to allow banks to custody crypto. There's new regulation and policies in place in order to facilitate all that happening. That's a double-edged sword, because now we're starting to see centralized institutional people come in and start to take over, try and eat the lunch of those who've been building in here for the last 7 or 8 years. So there's an issue there as well. But how do you get the mass adoption to go on? I agree with Kyle. You abstract away the complexities of it, right? Nobody needs to write down a seed phrase on a piece of paper and bury it in their backyard and create a map for it. You know, it just doesn't make sense. You know, we're not pirates. You know, we should be actually making it to where, you know, it's very easy. And most people will not adopt if they see that stuff. So from there, I think we then start to see maybe a larger percentage of the population start to come in and start using crypto on a regular basis. And these DeFi dApps that are currently here start to be a little bit more transparent about who they are. They are not anonymous anymore. They start to actually show quarterly or annual, revenue, things of that nature. We actually start seeing reports. We see audits. We actually see companies pop up that are actually rating these particular companies that already see the back end on the books and what they're doing and how they're doing it. So all those things can happen. I know that sounds dystopian for some in a lot of ways, but in some cases, that's the only way you're going to see the large majority of people start to come in to our ecosystem and start to use DeFi. It just simply, they just won't do it simply because of a lot of the complexity and risk that's involved.
Yeah, very nice.
I think to get people experiencing Cardano fully, we need simpler entry points, and we need compelling use cases. People should not encounter Cardano as just a token, but James and I have this wonderful advantage with Cardano over coffee, and same with Chris. We get to talk to so many projects and we get to hear about all the incredible things they're doing. So we want people to encounter Cardano as a way to verify a product's authenticity, to participate in community governance, to be able to do their own governance. Think about talking to communities, how they can govern with Cardano their own funds, their own treasury, access decentralized services. What we really want to have is the average ADA holder say, I don't just hold ADA, I use Cardano.
Yeah. Anyway, so with this, just to summarize a little bit for you guys that came in late to the party here, we have been looking into the imaginary glass bowl of the future of Cardano. We have been picking on revenue problems. We have looked at like changing the mindset. Another one that came to me very hard was mobile applications. Like when you said, like, wow, yeah. So with that, guys, I want first off thank you, the Cardano Foundation, for letting us borrow this platform and having this immensely important debate. And thank you, Kyle. Thank you, James and Chris, Rafa, and Christina for taking the time to hang around here for a little bit more over an hour. And of course, a special thanks to the people listening in all over the world. I've seen Australia. So with that, I think we're going to round up and call a wrap. If you guys in the community want to engage with product committee or with governance, or you want to get hands-on, put it like that, I recommend people joining Intersect, join some of the committees, some of the working groups. There are a lot of fancy things going on there, either very geeky stuff to governance, to product, to marketing. So
it's fun geeky stuff though, Ken, right?
Yeah, it's fun
geeky. I mean, it has to be fun for me, or I refuse. And I want to put a shout out to Ken and Denisio and Seba in the background running these things. Thank you for all the time and effort that you put in these things. I know it's a lot of work, so thank you very much.
Yeah. So with that, everybody have a very nice evening, or good morning, or good night. With this, we are signing off. So have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Good night, Rafa.
Thank you.
See you.